Hello and welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror movies and awesomeness. This week we have a look at the 1990 film Predator 2. That's because last week we did the 2022 film Prey, and we have in the past done the film Predator, which we need to put a link up on the Facebook page. But now we're back with the 1990 film Predator 2. This is episode number 378. Bear in mind, if you haven't seen today's movie, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have seen it. So warning, spoilers ahead. From Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, publisher at Castle Bridge Media, home of the Castle of Horror anthology. With me from Austin is Tony Savaggio, lead singer and bassist of the band Deserts of Mars, and lead guitarist of the band Rise from Fire. Say hello, Tony.
Howdy.
Howdy. Also in Austin, Mr. Drew Edwards is the writer-creator of the long-running underground comic Halloween Man, currently published by Comixology. He is a Best Writer Ringo nominee, Austin Chronicle Best of Austin Award winner, and a member of the PEN America Fellowship. Say hello, Drew.
Movie commentary is my specialty.
Sweet.
Nice. I was hoping you were going to lead with, do you want some candy? But
I debated that. I debated
Want some
that.
candy?
But
That
then
actually-
I thought
that
it.
is a
Then I
good
thought
one.
it sounded like I was like trying to pick Jason up. So
Yes.
well, you know.
I mean, you could have picked me up. I would have taken some candy.
There you
Yeah.
go.
And there she is, finally also in Denver. Color commentary from Julia Guzman of Guzman Immigration of Denver. Say hello.
Hello.
Hello. Okay. Predator 2 is a 1990 American sci-fi horror action film written by brothers Jim and John Thomas, directed by Stephen Hopkins, and stars Danny Glover, Gary Busey. Danny Glover and Gary Busey were both in Lethal Weapon. Ruben Blades, the fantastic musician, María Conchita Alonso, Bill Paxton, and Kevin Peter Hall. Kevin Peter Hall plays the Predator. It is the second installment of the Predator franchise, serving as a sequel to 1987's Predator, with Kevin Peter Hall reprising his role, set 10 years after the events of the first film in Los Angeles, so it's in the future. So it's 1997 Los Angeles. The film focuses on the Predator, a technologically advanced extraterrestrial hunter, and the efforts of a disgruntled police officer and his allies to defeat this malevolent creature. So, all right. That is what Predator 2 is. I can safely say I've never seen this movie before. So let's get our opening thoughts. Let's go Drew, Julia, Tony, and then I'll go. Drew, I know this was when you were literally jumping up and down and chanting this movie that you wanted to talk about. So
we actually
It's-
pre-gamed it at the show on Friday because
oh, did you really?
Drew came to
Yes.
my Deserts of Mars show. We were like, yes.
You know, we've been doing
Sunday.
this for 10 years.
Predator
I sometimes
2.
wonder if you could just do the show by yourself, just like write a script on what everybody says
Nah.
about a particular movie. And
The magic is in the spontaneity, and yet this is a nostalgic favorite of me. I still barely remember the first time seeing it. I think it was on HBO or Showtime when my family was on vacation, and we watched it in the motel while eating pizza, and I felt like an adult for some reason in that moment. But I have a lot of fun with it. It is definitely way campier than the first film, and pretty much most of the movies that come after it, but I think that's part of its charm, that it is so kind of crazy in 80s. This may be the most 80s movie of the 90s. Like
I was going to say that. I have more about that. I'm with you. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think, the fact that it is now a cop movie instead of a special ops movie, I do think that they kind of keep some of the satirical nature of it's the only movie that really attempts to do that in fact, by casting Danny Glover, who is one of our preeminent movie cops in the movie, it kind of does fit in the same, that's very much in the same, like he symbolizes cop movie the same way Arnold kind of symbolizes big guy with machine gun movies. So, I really like the cast, particularly Glover, but also Gary Busey, and it's just a fun movie. It may have my favorite creature effects of the entire franchise too. Like I think the Predator looks great in this. Introduces some of stuff that becomes kind of iconic as far as its weaponry, like the big pole arm and everything. And I think the invisibility effect looks best in this movie to me. So yeah, nostalgic favorite. It definitely does lean very hard into an exploitation movie vibe, so your mileage may vary. It's very over the top, but I think it's a lot of fun.
Okay. All right. Good start. Julia, so I'm gonna bet this is the first time for you watching Predator 2.
First and last, my friend.
So
First and
so
last.
what are your opening thoughts
I
here?
will have to disagree respectfully with Drew. I'll channel my inner Tony and say I feel bad for saying this because I know a lot of people worked really hard on this film, but I really did not like this movie at all. It's just so violent. It's like, I mean, I don't know if it really is half, but it feels like it's just half people shooting each other, and not even in a fun, like, a fun way where it's like any kind of tricks.
Right.
Just people shooting guns in the streets of Los Angeles for so much of the movie that I was like, I mean, I just really wanted, especially coming from watching Prey last week, where it was just so elegant. This one, it's like, oh my gosh, can we not do this anymore? I was just so tired of it. The only thing I liked, I mean, I do love Danny Glover. I loved I again love the effect of the Predator. I think it's really I just really love the invisibility effect. I think it's super cool. I like some of the stuff and the last like 30 minutes. I think Jason and I both said we really liked the last 30 minutes the best. But no, it's not for me. So apologies to anyone who's offended by that, but
I think that's fair.
I'm so angry.
so angry.
Rah!
Hulk smash.
I think
Yeah.
there's plenty of room for those opinions for sure.
Tony,
Tony,
this is a divisive movie in the franchise.
I'm interested in hearing about that.
It does seem if people either love it or hate it. So sorry, Tony.
No,
Yeah, Tony,
I
what
agree
are
with that.
What are your thoughts?
I really like the movie. This is the second time I've seen it in not too long. I just popped it on a while back just to like, oh yeah, I remember digging on Predator 2 because there's a lot of bits that kind of go into the mythology and then end up in the comics and kind of it becomes cyclical.
Yeah.
Right, those inform Aliens versus Predator, and that informs, Alien, that informs other Predator movies, Requiem and Predators, and so these things kind of come from this movie. Even though I get, and Julia, I think like I was watching it and I actually kind of I understand where you're coming from. With it is super like I like that it is kind of it was being filmed, so it's at the tail end of the 80s, but everybody's still wearing very 80s clothes.
Yeah.
And the vibe is that, and the kind of the future of Los Angeles being kind of a lawless land, almost a Judge Dredd style.
Yeah.
Like, or a RoboCop. It's closer to RoboCop. I think it's interesting that it's kind of in a RoboCop LA in a way, like where in the world of RoboCop, but in LA, in that vibe, that kind of like grittiness, and gangs are just doing whatever. It is really like when you watch it now, it is really ham-fisted in the Jamaicans portrayal and like the Latino, like all the gangs, and it's hard, you can't really defend it, but if you look at it as a piece of of time, like that era when it's being filmed and everything is very much a 80s, this is how the cities are gonna be, and this is this is, we don't know if guns will solve everything, but everybody's gonna have guns, and if we just let it keep going, that fear of gang violence in that way and where it would go, and there's the guy on the subway train, like all of that stuff is in the news. This is he's a Bernard Getz kind of guy.
Yeah, and that was
it's like a direct, like here. Oh, look, this will be this, and that was what 84. Yeah,
that was 84 when Bernie Getz shot those guys. Yeah.
So they put that in the film as a like, it's not a, it's like, okay, well this is how everything's gonna be. This is our RoboCop, our Escape from New York, etc. And in that way, it's interesting to have a Predator in an urban setting and to decide that we're gonna go with these hyperviolent stream of these kinds of movies. This is an ultimate cop movie. Again, like I said, and I kind of watching it this time, I did kind of feel like the RoboCop vibes in a way. And I think that setting is fascinating. But if you're not along for that, which I definitely was at the time, I mean, those are but also I will say, before we get too much further into it, this Predator, watching it this time, is such a jerk. Like,
Mm.
I feel like the other, I just started calling him Fred the Predator. Like, I feel like the other Predators are like, oh man, Fred, he's just, why is he tracking down like a cop? Like the one, like he's always there, and he's always in, he's not in, the areas that you think of, like the high crime areas. He's like mostly tracking these cops, and then, back to the the gang leaders in their lairs and stuff like that. And just the way he constantly he's using all the technology. Like, he never kind of backs down really. And
Well,
I just figure,
they call him Borg because of that, because of all the cybernetics.
yeah, and I just thought
Hmm.
this felt like, the other, there's all these other predators, again, we're spoilers, but there's all these predators at the end, and like, where were they hunting in
Yeah.
LA? And
When they
this
went to
guy's
pick
like,
this guy up.
man, I'm gonna pick a cop, and then I'm just gonna chase him and his friends around. Like, what? But
Well,
and-
something about Danny Glover, like,
Yeah,
it's just
really.
like, a worthy opponent.
Exactly.
That's true.
This middle-aged cop.
But
FYI,
just the way he approaches it, Fred, is it's kind of a jerk in this.
It
It's
is
awesome in a
funny.
way that like is hyper violent and interesting, but also he's a jerk.
What were you gonna say, Joy?
I was gonna say, FYI, some of the Predators are played by LA Lakers, because
Oh,
Danny
cool.
Glover knew the
Because
LA
they're
Lakers.
super tall, right?
Is that where
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
get the dancing predators video
I
from?
guess.
Possible.
Have you seen that?
No.
I have
Yeah,
not.
yeah,
That
yeah.
may single-handedly redeem this movie for you, Julia. Like,
Oh, man.
Google search dancing predators on
Awesome.
YouTube, and we're done with this.
Yeah.
Were they,
Anyway,
were they,
that went a little long for my. I enjoy it for what it is, but it is, like Drew said, very divisive. And I think if you aren't in the mindset of kind of that urban predator thing, and the where kind of the future of cop movies, quote unquote, was gonna be, even with the news reporting, very rabble rousing. That's where 1990 sees in 7 years how things are gonna be, and I find that a little bit fascinating now.
The RoboCop actually takes place in 1997, and this movie takes place in 1997. So it is the same.
which is just crazy. Yeah. Well, and obviously this movie seems very 80s because it's shot in the 80s. It's shot in like at least like 89, 90. So whatever
they
the hell
bother
the 90s,
to update the cars or anything. They're like,
whatever the 90s is, it hadn't started yet when this when this movie was made. If you think of like 90s horror as being, a lot of stuff that looks like that 90s remake of Carrie and Scream and all that stuff, this is not that. This looks and I guess this is my opening thought, is it is so crazy to go from that the jungle adventure that the first one was, that clearly wore its heart on its sleeve and was a big adventure. Everybody dies except Arnold, and then you end with a curtain call with everybody smiling at the camera. That movie was what that movie was. And this is like all those movies where like Jim Belushi plays a detective with like, burger wrappers in his floor and all those things where that, like, by the end of the 80s, there was like this template for what a grizzled detective was. And it was exactly what is portrayed here, and you're just looking at a movie that the way the police and the city and everything, I guess it's okay. It depends on how I approach this movie. If I approach it like, hey, I'm going to enjoy the fact that this is a zany, over the top, violent action movie, great. But as it was, I was just struck by just how inane all of this city violence was. The whole notion that, like, all the Bernie Getz stuff, the notion that everybody's carrying these guns, it just made me unhappy. But whatever. Maybe I watched it the wrong way.
Again, like, I feel like it's also kind of it's supposed to be. I get the impression too. For me, the way I think about it is the satire part of it is, it's supposed to be satirical. A world gone mad if we don't watch out. But it's partly satire and partly like, hey, if, you know how the gangs are now,
right?
What about 7 years from now? That kind of thing.
7 years from now,
and then
yeah. No, absolutely.
And it also has that Judge Dredd, which the satire in Judge Dredd, again, people often miss that you're not supposed to think he's the coolest. You're supposed to go, wow, I really don't want to live in the world of Judge Dredd. That sounds terrible because those guys can just shoot you or put you in ISO queue for nothing.
I said what I said about Jim Belushi, but in fact, Danny Glover's character is the straight one. He's not lazy.
Yeah.
He's not. They do this stupid Dirty Harry gag in here where they supposedly read Danny Glover's resume, and they say, that he's done all this antisocial stuff, but you don't see whatever that is.
No, and you
It's
don't
not
feel
written.
it either.
He
It's not
doesn't
written
play
into
it
this
like
character.
that. What I do find interesting about that, though, is if we are to take that on its word, that
Yeah.
means Danny Glover is essentially playing Mel Gibson's character from
Yes.
Lethal Weapon.
Destroyed a city bus and did all this stuff.
Yeah.
The only thing that's like that is actually in the opening sequence of this film, and we may as well talk about the plot of the actual film. The opening sequence of this film, there's this the setup is like, it's like a stunt show at Disneyland or something. It's you've got these two cops who are wounded over there near some low cover, with a whole bunch of gangsters shooting at a bunch of cops who are over here. The cops can't get close enough to carry away their wounded. And Danny Glover gets the brilliant idea of grabbing a car, tearing off one of the windows by one of the doors by backing it up, putting bulletproof vests into the windows, driving the car and spinning it sideways, creating cover, allowing the rescue of the guy. It is a complete set piece like you would see in a stunt show, and that establishes him as a take charge, take some risks, get yelled at afterwards, kind of dude.
But in the midst of it, we also have the world building stuff of, gangs just fight all the time now, and cops are almost used. And
Yes.
you see
Well,
when they go.
Every single person has a gun, including old ladies.
That was very
Yeah.
much in the zeitgeist, though, of this
Exactly.
this time period. Like this was
Yeah.
something that this was a believable
Oh yes.
future in a lot of
It
people's
still is a little bit.
minds.
Well, if you look
Or-
at crime rates, the crime rates, I think if you're in middle America, you might still think that this is what giant cities like LA and New York and whatever, Dallas are like. But in fact, crime at that point in the 80s was at its worst in the century. And now is like, even though we've had like worse crime like during COVID, because for whatever reason it's ticked up a little bit, but it ain't nowhere near the 80s. So yes, people going to the movies in the 80s and 1990 are still familiar with the notion that, man, something's got to happen, something's got to change because the crime is super, super bad.
Well, and I think, to Tony's point, this is the only Predator sequel that is satirical in the way that the first one is, and like that they're poking fun, they're in the genre, but they're also poking fun at it by injecting a monster into it. Like this is a Dirty Harry movie.
That's absolutely right. Yes,
And-
it's crazy, and I can imagine the meeting where somebody goes, "Here's what we do with Predator. It's a Dirty Harry movie," and then Predator walks in. That's
well, and that's the sort of the first movie. It's like the first movie is
Yes.
like let's make it's just essentially like let's make a Friday the 13th movie, but instead of teenagers, it's a bunch of muscle bound commandos. And
Yeah.
that's a
Well,
witty
commando style stuff was big.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I think to the movie that we just watched last week, that's a winning. One of our problems, one of the things he didn't like about The Predator was that it veered too far away from this. And that's why you now have a movie that's sort of more back to this kind of formula where you're taking a genre. In the case of this movie, it's a cop movie. In the case of Prey, it's a period piece, and you're injecting a monster into it. And I think that is kind of what works best for the most amount of people with this franchise. Like this movie definitely dials up the tone to 20, and like I said, I completely understand if that's not everybody's cup of tea, but it's
Sure.
at least more true to the formula than the Predator was. Man, they got to do something about the titles of this franchise.
I agree. Yeah, go ahead.
Also, and again, I don't want to belabor this too much, but to your point, Jason, not only is this kind of what was going on, but this film is a reaction to what is on the news every night and what we're being told will happen, right? There's a lot of politicians, coming out of the Reagan era. There's a lot of politicians, a lot of money being made to tell everyone you're not safe from these people, and writ large, those are those people, right? If you don't watch out, if you don't do this, this, and this is how everything will be in America. Will be this, and on the news every night, you're like, that was being pushed by a lot of political factors, and so extrapolating on that in a satirical sense brings us to this movie. And I never really thought about it much at the time, because it was just like, hey, cool, gritty cop stuff and and monsters. But watching it twice in a row, or twice within a very short time period, and really kind of thinking of it critically for the podcast, I really kind of started to take it apart in that way, and was like, oh yeah, why does this exist this way? And it's because
I just want to throw out a little bit of some statistics, just so that I say something to back all this up, but exactly what you're saying, Tony, and for what it's worth, in 1990, the murders per 100,000 people was 9.3. Okay, and actually it ticked up in 91 to 9.7, so nearly 10 per 100,000 people, which we're so accustomed to seeing crime. But anyway, that was terrible. That was really, really bad. And now it is at 6.52, because it ticked up a little bit. But in 2019 it was at 5. And what I always wondered is, how come we don't hear more about that? In other words, murder rates have been way down over the past 30 years, and yet I don't really feel like anybody out there. I don't think politicians on either side.
Yeah, but there's a lot more mass murders. There's a lot more.
That's true.
These horrible,
I mean, but I don't think politicians have bothered to go try to take credit for the streets being safer. I wish they had.
No, because as long as you've got 19 school children being killed, you're not going to be going, yay, gun violence is down. You know what I mean? It just doesn't. It's not going to work.
Yeah, I guess that.
We don't also have predators. That's why.
Right. So anyway,
nor do we have RoboCop. Although we're getting there with
now I want to see RoboCop versus Predator, though. Why Dark Horse had
why didn't I mean, they did it in comics, right?
I don't think so. I think they did everything else versus Predator, but I don't know. I'm gonna Google to do what versus Predator? RoboCop versus Predator.
I'm certain that sounds like something Dark Horse definitely would have done.
If it was not done, that is a huge oversight. So I see RoboCop versus Terminator, which RoboCop versus the Predator. Now that's fan art. Man,
well, get back to us on that. So So is it fair to say, for what it's worth, that the message of the movie is
I love that you're going to try to come up with a moral for this film.
Well, no, I wrote this on my phone to myself. It was like, what is the message of this movie? And it seems to be the predator is attracted to hotspots, attracted to places like Gary Busey, as a government agent, says, we've been tracking this alien, and he likes to go to hotspots like Beirut. And the message seems to be, America is now one of those places.
Yeah, but I think the idea there is just supposed to be that they're supposed to be kind of stealth. Like, they're not supposed to be drawing attention to themselves. So presumably they should be just kind of hunting amidst places where other people are already getting killed anyway.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
And also they take it literally, because in the first one they talk about the heat, and this one there's a heat wave as well, because they talk about it several times.
Which seems to be
everybody's going crazy because it's so hot.
Yeah,
which seems to be dropped after every in every sequel after this.
Yeah, they come with
this marks the end of a lot of things that it picks up in weaponry and that kind of thing, but it also drops some of those kind of bits after this.
That's so fascinating. So we meet Danny Glover, and we start to meet his team. I love some of his team. Ruben Blades is really great, but I just want to say, Bill Paxton, who I had forgotten about this version of Bill Paxton. Bill Paxton here.
This is the Chet version.
He's smiling ear to ear. He's wearing this just repulsive leisure suit with the wide collars. He just is the most loathsome, punchable human. He is just, Jesus Christ.
Somebody suggested that he's the ancestor of his character from Alien.
Very probably.
Right. Awesome. No, he's absolutely. Yeah. he's just the way he talks. He's probably got some kids. This cop character has been playing it fast and loose for a while.
Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense. It's actually really close to that.
I just and obviously they what they're trying to do in the movie is later, they introduce him as this obnoxious
Yeah.
character, and so that way Maria Conchita Alonso as this hardworking Latinx woman. You've got Ruben Blades as serious detective Danny Archuleta, and then you've got this douchebag Bill Paxton. But when they work together, Bill Paxton knows how to do his job and can be taken seriously. But boy, I hated
Well,
this
it
guy.
also gives him a chance when he gets a redemption
Yes.
chance. You go, oh, well, see, he had that in him the whole time. It was just bravado, and you're supposed to, but until then, you can't really give him a pass. He's such a just.
I mean,
but he's good
hitting
at
on
playing
every
that
woman
guy.
he
I mean,
sees. And I know that this is just the way it is, because again, if you go back to like the greasy, grimy detectives of the 80s, again, the Jim Belushi style. I don't know why I'm picking on Jim Belushi, but like
there's always a smirky guy chewing gum, and he's
yes,
that guy. Right.
Well, he's also, they call him the Lone Ranger because he's supposedly like kind of not a team player, which is not actually again how he acts. Like he folds into the team, fairly well.
You've pointed out something interesting there. You're right. This is the second time that you've got the script saying some things about these characters that we never actually see them.
Well, because they want this to fit into that rogue cop genre. And I mean, admittedly, they are that as a unit, because like their chief is saying, hey, step back and let the feds take care of this.
Right. Don't go into that building. You're right.
But
and
then they go ahead and be like, yeah, we're gonna, but no, we're gonna do this. So like, I mean, they are, but they are that as a group. They aren't that separately. Like, so they really aren't, it's as if there was like a team of Dirty Harrys instead of just one Dirty Harry, I guess.
Or multiverse. Everybody gets an aspect of Dirty Harry's.
Yeah,
that's right.
Like, the multiverse of Harrys.
they're the mod squad. I don't know.
Well, do you remember what Dirty Harry was? It's funny to me to think that we've forgotten a lot of how complicated Dirty Harry was. Like Dirty Harry, for one thing, used a lot of racial epithets, and that was his shtick. Was that he offended everybody equally, used a lot of racial epithets, but mostly, if you weren't actively robbing a bank at the time, he would not actively shoot you at the moment, and that was Dirty Harry. And then they slowly kind of sanded the edges off of Dirty Harry, because like the very next movie, he's taking down bad cops, and then as it goes, Dirty Harry got a little more palatable. So here, you're right, because Danny Glover certainly isn't going to be calling anybody the N-word. He's not going to be calling Ruben Blades, any slurs. So that part is going away. So what are you left with when you can't really make your cops truly offensive anymore? I think you're left with a lot of noise, which is what
but they do still break. They don't still, if nothing else, they don't follow protocol, which I think
that's true.
Would make a lot of people wrinkle their noses, like if they were around that in real life. Like in the world of this movie, they are 100% justified, but like in the real world,
and that's part of it though, and part of what we've talked about several times, like coming from the 70s and Dirty Harry, and a lot of convoy style, like where, hey, we're the people, I don't know about police, they're gonna do this and that, Smokey and the Bandit style stuff, to a world where we're okay with, what, if it wasn't for the Danny Glovers and the mod squad of this team's, if it wasn't for them, those gangs, those people, as it were, the idea is without them protecting us, that's what it's gonna be. And now we're seeing that progression as these movies come along, and that's what eventually kind of becomes the thing, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's
if everything's out of control, like we need these guys here. Or you see what happens? Look at what the gangs are doing.
No, that's a common trope in the movies where the world needs. Oh God, what is a typical cliche?
Well, it's the good bad man, like that kind of thing. You know,
a
I
blunt
think
instrument. James
yeah.
Bond is supposed to be the blunt instrument of the Queen, basically.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the most direct as far as the cop stuff in this, other than like RoboCop and Judge Dredd, but like also, you know, of course, Lethal Weapon, which
Yeah.
this, you know, not just because
Exactly,
Danny
yeah.
Glover is there, but like the stuff that they're both figuratively and literally dissecting is all from that. What I like about this universe though, and you know, even though like some of it is you know, you're definitely trading in cringy stereotypes, like
Right.
the criminals do their part in this movie, like in particularly like the King Willie character, you know, jumping ahead to him.
Yeah.
He's got very limited screen time, but they do a damn good job of giving him like a whole mystique within like
Okay, let's talk about that
absolutely.
character. Let's just talk. Let's go straight to King Willie, because yes, Calvin Lockhart plays this voodoo-tinged Jamaican.
Which, by the way,
drug lord.
Jamaicans don't do voodoo. That's a Haitian thing, but whatever.
So,
Right.
but what,
Well, yeah. I mean, we're
fair.
firmly no. That's part of. And that's part of why people are like, oh boy, this movie. Like,
Yeah.
But that guy. Let me say that guy.
What
though,
have you done? What have
It's
you done?
I called it an equal opportunity offender movie.
Yes.
It is. I mean, you can't, when you watch it now, you can't really get past like, I don't. I mean, I know it's of a time, and you have to say like you have to view it that way. I don't. I hope we don't. We can write these things better now. Right?
It's true that its
Super
views of Jamaican and Latinx games is problematic. I think is a fair thing to say. That there are that. But boy, listen, that actor who plays King Willie though, Calvin Lockhart. I don't know that actor, but goddamn,
he's from The Beast
he
Must
sells
Die.
it. Oh yeah,
okay.
yeah.
He is great. He is so good. Oh my gosh.
He creates a memorable character. Like, I mean, you know, his costuming's great. Like the whole, and like I do laugh every time I watch that like scene with him, because it seems like, well, I was just hanging out in the alley waiting for the steam to rise just perfectly so I can have my Batman intro. But like he's interesting, you know, and like, you know, he kind of feels like he's got like a supernatural quality to him.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's just, you know, yeah, you know, like it's not unproblematic, but like everybody I know who talks about this movie remembers that character. So the fact that you can have somebody come in and really make a fully memorable character within just like a few moments, you know, my hat's off to that. You know, like that's what I'm there for.
I also want to mention,
also, by the time Danny Glover gets to him, there's no way being in that car he is not high as a kite.
Yeah.
Like, he gets in and like, oh no, I'm working. Like, no, man, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know?
But yeah, he definitely acts like.
That's like.
What were you gonna say there, Jason?
Well, yeah, King Willie seems almost magical. Like he does seem to have almost supernatural powers. I wanted to mention also among the supporting actors. So when the character Tony Pope, the journalist, comes on, I'm like, oh, so they got this actor to do a whole Morton Downey Jr. thing. But no,
right.
It is Morton Downey Jr. playing himself, essentially.
Yeah.
And that blew my mind, you know, and I, to this day, am not really clear how much of Morton Downey Jr.'s shtick was shtick. Because apparently, like in his later years, when he moved over to radio, he wasn't like screaming and you know, being foul-mouthed and all that stuff that was his thing on TV. So to some extent, he was a character that, you know, that he played. But I think
the future of Morton Downey Jr. is Morton Downey Jr.
Right.
Evidently, in this world. Also, like, I mean, again, with everything with the gangs, and like the Latin gang has all of this, like, you know, oh, what we need is kind of ruins in our hideout.
Oh yeah,
as well. It's like you're just like, wait, what?
Yeah, and I love the
use.
Like, this is so 80s of like the 80s version of the gun mall, who's the naked girl who's like having sex with the warlord when the Jamaican gang breaks in, and she just goes and cowers in the corner. She serves zero purpose other than to be naked on screen. There's like
that's where you get that's where you
one.
add to your R rating. Like you gotta
NC-17,
they're
man.
checking off
They
all the
started
boxes.
out with NC-17 rating.
Really?
Yeah, they had to like keep.
Well, I can see that. I mean, it is pretty violent.
I guess, but is it more violent than Raiders of the Lost Ark? I mean, that's what I can't figure out. Is like,
yes.
Yeah,
it is way more violent. Like
there was so much violence that they actually.
I'm starting to think that you don't see violence the same way as you.
I'm thinking Drew's right.
Yeah,
I know I've said that, but you know, okay. So last week we did have the conversation where I was like, Prey just doesn't seem that violent, and it does not compared to like Bone Tomahawk. It doesn't, you know, like there's or any given Friday the 13th. You know,
this movie has people getting their cutting half, their heads cut off. The Predator in the final spends the entire final fight scene missing an arm.
That's true. No, I agree that there's ugly violence here. I just feel like
over 20 times to get rid of the NC-17 rating.
My point last week, and I guess to some extent here, is that there's a difference between between like an ugly amount of violence, which I feel like this movie has, and gore. I feel like this is not a gorehound movie. Like,
but it doesn't have to be gory to make for censors to change the rating. Like, I think you're talking about
that point. I do think for a mainstream movie with mainstream actors, this is a gory movie. Like it's not gory if you like put it up against like Dead Alive or even something like Freddy versus Jason. Like, it's not going to be gory on that level. But like for a movie that's got Danny Glover,
I guess you're exactly. I guess you're right.
I just think that you need to stop saying gory and start saying violent, because it's so violent. Like you can't argue that the whole movie is violent every minute.
Yeah, and I feel even
shots on severed heads.
Yeah.
No, I agree, but I'm more disturbed by the amount of like machine guns in the streets in this movie, honestly, than the severed heads from the end.
To me, the machine guns in the streets are just it's at a comical.
That's true.
That goes back to the Judge Dredd thing, like the scene where literally everybody in the subway
car,
has a gun. Like I laugh at that, but
it is funny.
I also understand though why a lot of people are like, I'm not on board with this. This is ridiculous.
I'm perfectly ready to
absolutely
embrace satire. I know I sound like an alien of some kind saying, no, I too can appreciate.
You better be careful if you're an alien, because I hear predators go after those too.
Well, another thing that got me, because as we go along and the Predator starts picking off, Danny Glover's crew, basically. Anybody Danny Glover's around, this Predator's decided, like, you're a worthy adversary, but I really like taking out anyone who's around you as well.
That's true,
so, and he takes out, the guy goes to investigate, and he finds, the Predator dart. And then the Predator's like, oh, hey, cop, I just happen to also love, like, I could be out fighting more, this Predator isn't like going out to fight bears and Rottweilers or whatever, like whatever's in the streets in gangland. He's not out there fighting. He's not even going to like gang areas, right?
No, he's collecting trophies though.
Well, let me go hang out in this crime scene and then attack another cop because he has a gun.
I think he was also because he was getting evidence of him being there. So like he had the piece.
I know, but in general, it seems weird that he's so intent on like killing everybody. It seemed weird that he was just well, you know what? This is where I'm gonna hang out.
It's not entirely dissimilar behavior from the Predator in the first movie. Like we do know that like there's a perfect example of what TV tropes calls even evil has standards. In that he chooses not to kill the pregnant cop,
right?
But like even though he totally could. So like Predators do have like this weird code about them. Like they won't attack you if they don't. He doesn't kill the kid. Like he won't kill you if he doesn't think you're a threat.
Right.
But yeah, like pretty much everybody else is kind of fair game, and no pun intended. Because like he's collecting trophies, man. He's got to get all the spinal columns don't grow on trees, Tony.
Right.
I like in this one that he also buffs the skulls. Like, man, I would hate to. I can't. They'll laugh at me if my collection is not properly buffed and shiny.
It is crazy. I love
That's great.
that when the aliens, the aliens come and park their snail ship below this building, and you have other aliens there, and theoretically, I guess they're just making the rounds, picking out different guys in their group, and I don't. So, which means maybe each of the other guys have all been in a different place. Like maybe one is, down in Napa Valley killing people in wine country, and I mean, I don't know where.
Saying, like, we don't see where because there's a bunch of them in this one, like more than I even thought.
Yeah.
Usually they're dropping their buddies off. That's why I'm saying why all of those guys probably just think Fred is
that
guy.
Well, no, in theory, they're idiots just like Fred. I mean, I truly believe that they are probably doing precisely the same thing, because
that whole scene of the ship is so confusing to me, like the geography of like where the heck is this ship and how did they get there from that elevator. Anyway, whatever, go ahead.
Well,
Drew.
we can talk about that.
No, it's okay.
Because for what it's go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah,
I do like. So I was thinking about this movie, the way they give us bits of what the culture of these creatures is like versus, like, I remember, again, I'm going back to when we did The Predator, which was the one from 2018, and one of the things that we didn't like as a group is they sort of gave you like too much information instead of like making it part of the story. Like they're like, oh well, they collect spinal columns because of this, whereas I feel like for this movie's faults, they do the world building the right way. Like
I agree.
And
I think it's also cool that they, that we have the Men in Black are eventually silver as it is.
Yeah,
like
with
I
their
think
Mr.
that's
Freeze
cool.
guns.
Yes, I think that and how that plays in, I think that's also part of it. I didn't mean to interrupt you on your thought, but like the world building of, hey, now we do really know, like that was a high enough profile thing that we're actually looking for when these aliens come back, and we have a team that does that.
Well,
I think that's cool.
I also like at the very end when the predators, like once he's defeated that one predator, the other predators are like, okay, human, we respect you. Here's a trophy of your own, which is apparently the gun from last week's movie. But,
fascinating. That is
so
fascinating to me. Yeah.
That was actually one of my favorite parts, was that that he thinks, oh, I'm a goner for sure, and we're all thinking the same thing watching all these predators show up, and then they're like, oh no, you're a worthy predator yourself. Here's a trophy for you.
Here's a trophy
from your own people.
His trophies are also great, and I love that they were just like, "Hey, we're gonna throw the xenomorph in, right?" Just
that was awesome.
Well, we can also infer, if you want to do the math between Prey and this movie, is the reason why maybe they give him that particular gun is that it's the weapon of somebody that previously killed a predator. At least that's right. At least that's what I'm choosing to take it until like they run it in a sequel. But
well, there has been a comic book that went into it, but I mean, I think we can safely. I mean, maybe it was wonderful, but we can ignore it. I mean, we don't have to assume that it was correct. But in that one, you have a pirate and a predator kind of go to war against one another, but then after some other people who are unworthy shoot the pirate in the back, spoilers for Predator 1750, the predator holds on to his gun because the guy was worthy and whatever. But
go ahead, sorry.
No, that's it. I have no idea if that has any salience now.
So since they're the only ones who know this and they haven't gone back to their planet yet, do you think all the guys when they're leaving are like, so who gets Fred's predator? Like, who gets his trophies? I got dibs on the spinal column. Like,
I get the spine. That's another thing.
You want the xenomorph skull?
Yeah, I never realized until watching it this time that when he climbs up onto the roof and is like holding the spinal column up and roaring in like victory, that's actually, I don't know why it never registered to me that that's Bill Paxton's spinal column.
Yeah, it is.
I was like, whoa, I liked that guy. Jesus.
No, well, when he throws the body down, it's missing all that. It's just this bag of,
Right.
It's like missing his spinal because it's just
Which is why, again,
what
I
used
would
to
say
be Bill
this is a
Paxton.
gory movie.
Yeah,
I suppose you're right.
It's something else. Like he throws that down and like runs, and somebody's got to clean up
I have a rule now.
Pieces of Bill Paxton.
Well, I mean, I feel like this is the difference. I feel like when you have this is gonna sound dumb, but I'm just trying to create a rating system in Jason's head. Remember in what's the movie about the alien that hunts Dylan McDermott in a building? I actually can't remember. Anyway,
in that one, mean Hardware, do you?
Hardware. So in that one,
which is the robot,
the robot uses an elevator to kill somebody at one point, and so not only is the person cut in half, but you can like see inside them, and there's all these like there's
he rightly gets pulled apart in the
right, or somebody gets their arm chopped off, and you can like see muscles and bone inside. To me, if gore is 3-dimensional, then that's some special gore, basically,
Right.
But if it's a Star Wars level chopped off arm, then I almost don't pay any attention to it anymore, which I guess is something wrong with me. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we all draw our lines wherever. I'm not.
I'm
with the same thing. There's some movies where I go, I'm just either I've seen that before and I'm not as impressed, and maybe that's not great, or especially when it's just like, isn't this edgy? Kind of like trying to poke you in the eye without like I've long since just given up on that.
Right.
Like I'm like, cool. I mean, I know people have made cool gore for a long time.
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
But then there's other stuff where I go, you know what? This is realistic enough and it's involved enough in a way that I'm not.
Well, and
I found myself turning away. Like I'm okay with this movie, but like I found myself kind of like oof when I was watching the Hannibal TV series.
Yeah.
Like that's a different type of gore, a different kind of violence.
And sometimes I can't take it. I mean, sometimes it's too rough for me, and I know exactly, like I don't like torture porn, so I don't like so I
This to me all goes in, like I understand absolutely where Julia's coming from, like because Rain's the same way, especially now. Like we used to watch more violent movies when we were first hanging out, and as the years have gone by, she's like, I'm not into this as much anymore, and that's cool. I'm whatever. I'm not here to force anybody to watch anything they don't want. But yeah, I think she would be agreeing with Julia that there's just so much. There's a lot of fire and a lot of viscera, and
it can make it hard to turn off.
It's still like oof, I like how much again we go back to what Drew was saying, where we start to see where media, even if this movie is very divisive, it does lead to where a lot of media, comics especially, and stories, I think there were some novels, like where the Predator mythology goes and leads to, say, Aliens versus Predator. A lot of it does come from this movie, weaponry wise, like how they say, oh well, he sees into the infrared, and so if we have enough ultraviolet, that counters it, and all that kind of
that
stuff.
was clever. Yeah, so let's talk about that. The big plot of
course he's smarter than that, because he's like, oh, I have this helmet that like I don't have to care about that.
Yeah, but that was super smart. That Gary Busey has figured out how to.
Well, his team, like he's it's first he seems like, oh, look, these meddling guys are messing with the cops, and what are they doing in secret? And it turns out, they start researching him, and they go, hey, this guy's super smart. Ends up they've hired him to be that super smart think tank guy for a bunch of people who want to, capture or kill and dissect a predator.
Yeah,
because they know there's such a thing. That's pretty cool, actually.
No,
and how they're button head, because it seems like the typical like, oh, FBI's here, but oh no, it's a team of alien hunters.
Yes.
I mean, not Danny Glover doesn't get to learn this by choice. He gets, the idea is that he is becoming a pain for, looks like the feds, but it's the feds plus, right? Yeah. It's Area 51 feds and not just your normal FBI guys.
Yeah.
So they take him and go, hey, look, we're bringing you in and letting you in on this, but you got to sit here because we need you out of the way. we're not taking any of your Dirty Harry business any further.
Well,
We've got a
also
plan.
they know if they have him, they have something that the Predator wants, because the Predator
True.
is actively stalking this guy. Like,
Right.
I want to
point.
say something about Busey in this movie and his performance. Busey is the tone of this movie. Like, if anybody is like
That's true.
100% aware of what kind of movie he's in, it's Gary fucking Busey. Like, and
I'm
like,
with you.
well, and he starts out as like the more normal Busey, and then by the time of his like death scene, he's
Yeah.
like full Busey, like he's the
Right.
unhinged Busey that we all know and love. And you know, like, again, that's why I can't completely write this movie off, because like I enjoy the fuck it, let's dial the
Yeah.
knobs up to 80s and 80 and tear them off, you know.
Yeah.
Like I enjoy that kind of thing. Sometimes I want to see something that's like extremely over the top, like, you know, it starts out with gang members on coke shooting
Yes.
out with an alien, and eventually we have feds with Mr. Freeze costumes on. Like,
Well, you know, in a way, that what you just said makes me think of something, which is that, you know, Tony was just making the excellent point that you can get to where we're so disturbed by the amount of violence in our world that this kind of like cartoonishly over the top crazy violence just can give us a stomach ache, and we don't want to. It's nauseating. We don't want to watch it. But I think you can also have a different head where you go and look at like you know, Lethal Weapon or Death Wish 3. And instead, you can kind of think to what is curiously a more innocent time, where this
Well,
kind of over the top violence just seemed like it was on, in the same way that the deep distrust of the government of the X-Files was delightfully entertaining in an era when people actually felt pretty good about the government.
well,
So
notice you said Death
yeah.
Wish 3 and not Death Wish 1, which is
Right.
in its is
Death
I
Wish
wouldn't
1 is
say
a dark-ass
realistic, but
movie.
more realistic and dark in a way that
Yeah.
isn't Death Wish 3, right?
Which is hilarious that a series can do that in just two more movies.
Right.
Like,
But
yeah.
I think, you know, that's what you're hitting on.
Yeah.
But originally, you know, they bring Danny Glover in because he's being hunted, but also the reason that they're there was because he's tracked it down to, hey, the Predator comes to this warehouse because he likes beef. He likes his steaks rare. He's gonna get some tartar. That's evidently what he's into. And there's a whole warehouse full of grade A, good stuff.
Yeah.
And that's why they've tracked him there. But they've also you know, but he's missed that they set all the traps. So again, I go back and forth on Fred. I don't think he's perhaps always the smartest. He's a very impulsive predator.
Predator,
exactly.
Predator. Yeah, they call him Borg for some reason in IMDb, but I don't know where that comes from. But they say that's what
people will probably be like, "That's what this Fred business, Tony. You're an idiot."
I always hear like them refer to like the Predator in the first movie is Jungle Hunter, and this one becomes City Hunter.
Yeah, I did see
and that makes more sense, and that's much better. I just thought
Predator is good. I like Predator.
I can roll with Predator.
I'm sure some people are just like, I'm turning this off now.
City Hunter is also the name, by the way, of a really funny 80s era Jackie Chan movie. So
also, it was an anime
Predator
first, by the way, Jason.
Oh, that's right. You are correct. It was an anime. Yes. Yeah.
Super Cop versus Predator.
Yes.
Why?
Oh man, if I could go back in time and make a Jackie Chan versus Predator, I would absolutely do that. That would be amazing. Plus, that City Hunter, the original City Hunter movie, has Jackie Chan turning into Chun-Li, which is great.
What's that?
No, there's a whole Street Fighter sequence in the Jackie Chan City Hunter movie.
Right. Yes.
And in one part, Jackie Chan is Chun-Li. There's also some really not copacetic version of Dalsim in there.
I know next to nothing about Street Fighter. Now I need to go spend the evening.
You can you can also just Google City Hunter Street Fighter scene, because they played a lot at the Draft House pre-shows.
Yeah, I have a
vague memory.
And
it's I don't want to get too far, but it's just that's how big Street Fighter was at the time, because they're gonna go, well, we're not gonna just ape the source material from Japan. We're also gonna be like, well, we have to have this part that's like Street Fighter. Why wouldn't we?
I'm looking
and it
up
is
Chun-Li, Jackie Chan. Ah, yes,
just
that's right. Suddenly he has the
no, but they dub
tails
in all of the
and
sounds
the
from
dress.
anyway. It's something
Holy
else.
crap!
It's of a time, but I do wish I would totally
Well,
watch
good for Jackie Chan.
Jackie
Let's
Chan
just
Predator.
say, first of all, good for him being willing to do kung fu in a mini dress. Okay, that's
I mean, that sequence is hilarious, and
Yeah.
other than I think, hey, let's have a let's put brown skin paint on this other guy and have him be quote unquote Indian. That part is whew. But whatever, man. I mean, that's it's not like Street Fighter. The game itself was this bastion of not.
I don't
being
even know if you can
stereotyped.
use the word political correctness for something because that's a very American concept. So I
Right,
don't even know.
But I mean, the whole Street Fighter is like here's a monster from Brazil, the most American. Here's what we think of as American. It's a guy on an army base with crazy hair and a flag tattoo. And this is what India is. That guy knows says Yoga Flame. It's like I mean that's what that is, right? Like,
Yeah.
Here we are.
So all right. Yes. So the Gary Busey guys get wiped out, although Gary Busey gives room for Danny Glover to enter the mano a mano fight with the Predator, and this becomes a nice, actually three-dimensional fight where they fight on the side of two buildings until finally from one building to another through an apartment.
And the
then,
Predator also pulls out his kit. He's got like a first aid kit.
That's right.
Yeah.
Danny Glover cuts off his
just
arm.
in case you get your arm chopped off. He knows how to these Predators. These
for
guys
some
have
reason
seen some
involves ceramic tile, which I've always loved.
I don't know what he was doing with the ceramic tile. I think he
No,
was
it
just
becomes the
blocking up the drain.
catalyst to basically cauterize. So he burns it, becomes a gel, and that gel is what he uses to seal the.
Also,
That was
it's
pretty
alien
cool.
technology, and I'm completely okay. Like, one of the constant criticisms you hear about aliens in movies is that they make things too understandable. So I'm always there for like, here's a bit of technology that seems weird, that like they don't bother to you understand it enough that he's performing first aid on himself.
Well said. Yes, yeah. I also like the fact that Danny Glover at that point has figured out how to use what I'm going to call the razor frisbee that
I love that
the
name.
Predator. Yeah, and he used that to slice off the Predator's arm. Anyway, Predator heads back to his ship, and Danny Glover heads down to his ship. Now, presumably, that means getting all the way to the bottom of this building, and then
and we get Danny Glover's "I'm too old for this shit," where he's like, "Why does it have to always be heights?"
That's right.
Also, because it is the sequel, you have to have the one-liners. So you do have the part where the Predator finishes the sentence with,
"Yes, that's right.
You're one ugly," and it says "motherfucker" as if it knew the other Predator.
He says it like Arnold Schwarzenegger style, which means he got it.
So he got it
from
in
studying the first movie.
Yes.
It's the other Predator, the first Predator, Jungle Predators, like YouTube video basically of its time, right? Where he's beaming it into the ships, and they're like, "Oh man, did you see that caper? Yeah, too bad he bought it. Those humans, man."
It's a really good point. They had to get that information from the Predator who died.
They don't necessarily. They've been hanging around humans and murdering them. I'm sure they picked up on a lot.
But this
I mean, in this actual film, somebody else says the word, but the thing is, he says it kind of Arnold Schwarzenegger-y. That's why.
I mean, it's definitely a callback. I'm just saying that they don't necessarily have to have picked it up from the Predator from the first movie.
Well,
if you're hacking people, I'm just saying, if you're hacking people to pieces on a regular basis, I'm sure somebody said "motherfucker."
Yeah, well, no, I mean, one of the characters, Jerry, says it in this film.
I do want to point out
they learned it from the other one in a way that's.
I'm not trying to take away your no prize. I'm really not. Like,
I just want to point out that Roger Ebert, who vacillated wildly from reviewed a review on which Roger we were going to get reviewing a trashy movie. He was having a bad day when he reviewed this movie, so he was offended by everything, including the language. He was like, the language is too strong, this street language that they use. And I'm thinking, motherfucker, you wrote what was it? Beneath the Valley of the Ultra Vixens?
Yep.
Like that Roger Ebert, it was so bizarre that all of a sudden he'd be like, well, I don't know if they'd use that kind of language at the Chicago Sun-Times, but I don't know.
Today I've worn my pearls so that I may clutch them furiously to my chest.
I mean, it
perhaps
checks
tomorrow
out,
I won't have my pearls, but tonight
it checks out though, because he did hate the Friday the 13th franchise, and
yeah.
I really firmly believe that you would not. I don't think you would have the Predator franchise if you didn't have Friday the 13th first. Like I think
agree.
that
That's probably true. Yeah,
cousins of each other.
I like Ebert, and I think like he, I mean,
well, like I say, he
into
vacillated.
All of our, but yeah, it was even watching it as a, watching him as a kid, and you like sometimes you're like, oh yeah, I agree, and other times like, wait, why are you mad at this and not this other thing?
Right.
Okay. And that, that's just being human, right? Like, it's nothing to do. It's not a knock against, him being a pretty amazing film critic and having, a lot of really insightful things to say about film. But it is like you said, like sometimes you go, okay, yeah. And other times you're like, why? But why tonight? Why?
Right. What was it about this week, Roger? That. Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay. So when the film, we actually did talk about more or less what happens in the the spaceship. So I think we should probably do our
and I think it's interesting too, because what we do have, and I think that's kind of fascinating, is you do eventually have the Predator being chased by the human.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of cool. I mean, because Arnold is, setting traps and stuff like that. But by the time we're at this climax, you actually have Danny Glover like, I got to go after this cat, and ends up in a spaceship, right?
And he's wounded.
Well, he says he's gonna avenge his dead partner.
Exactly.
And by the end of the movie, partners. And by God, he does it, because that's what a movie cop does.
Exactly, right. Exactly. But that kind of flipping it a little bit, still pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I mean, and again, if you want to talk about gore, like, yeah, okay, the blood is Dayglow, black light green, but he really chops into the Predator,
yeah,
pretty well when it's go time. Grizzled Danny Glover takes no, he's not taking any shit on that.
Yeah, and he carves him up with the frisbee, the razor frisbee, as I mentioned. Yeah, it's that toy is great. I really want to see that. It reminds me of the Razor Jack in Unreal, actually, in a way. It's similar. I would like to see that in a movie. Actually, the way the Razor Jack worked, where you shot the saw blade and it would go zing, zing, zing.
Right. And this is a boomerang as well.
Yes.
Right, because it's
powered, and you can hold it. Flight. You can grip it by the fingers and just use it as a saw. I mean, it's a neat tool.
It chops, it dices, chili and fries.
Yeah, and IMDb they call it the smart disc. I don't know if that's actually the name of it or.
Razor frisbee is a much cooler name.
Razor frisbee is a better name. Yeah, I agree.
Yes. So
you can't, along with lawn darts, you can no longer buy razor frisbees at the.
I feel like that should be part of the that SNL sketch with Candace Bergen and
Mr. Mainway,
John Belushi. Yeah, where it's like
it was Dan Aykroyd as Mr. Mainway. Yeah.
Oh, Dan Aykroyd. I thought John Belushi. Yeah, yeah.
Although it would be funny now to see one Predator who's like 70s Predator. He's like, this one had lawn darts. those are really dangerous. We learn.
That's great. Okay, let us get our final thoughts. Let us load our flintlock pistols and fire our final thought about Predator 2. So what order we go? I think we said we started with Tony. Yeah, no, Drew.
No,
it was Drew, Julia, Tony, and then I'll go. So, Mr. Drew, Predator 2. Have we respected it properly? And give us your final thoughts.
I don't know. Like, for some reason, y'all thought I was going to be mad at you if you didn't like this movie enough.
I'm always worried about that. There are movies I love.
I mean, and that's kind of you, but like, this is not. I feel like you gave this movie the appropriate amount of respect. It's okay to not like this movie because Lord knows a lot of people don't like this movie, but I think it's a lot of fun, and I definitely had a fun time talking about it with y'all. So, and I also think it's kind of crazy that we've now covered 90% of the Predator, 95% of the Predator movies. That's a bit nuts.
Is that so? We've done Predator.
Yeah, we have to excluding the Alien versus movies. Like we would have to, if we did one more, if we did Predators, the Robert Rodriguez one, we would have done.
No, because the other one is Requiem. That's right. It's Alien versus Predator. That's right.
Yeah,
you're right.
Yeah, there's two Alien versus Predator, and but like I would never want to talk about those on the show. However, I would gladly do Predators because I think that this is a fun franchise. The monster is great. The scenario is perfect. Like that badasses versus a monster is never going to be boring.
I guess that's true.
And I had a great time talking about this tonight. So like, you don't have to love it. We had a good time. That's all that matters.
Good, excellent. Julia, what about you?
I mean, I don't really have anything else to say about it.
Fair.
Other than what
No,
we've
that's
talked about.
fine. Yeah.
It's it is what it is. If it's your kind of movie, then you like it. If it's not, then you probably won't.
Okay. All right, Tony.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely understand why it's kind of a divisive movie, and again, you're either kind of along for the ride and the feel of it or not. And there's nothing wrong with either side of that to me. I enjoyed it the first time I saw it. I took kind of a harder look at it since I viewed it a couple of times recently, and some parts, work better than others. But I do. It's such a interesting time capsule of exactly where all these things are coming together, and it's interesting to see, 3 years later, how it transitions from the let's get a bunch of like really big dudes in the jungle doing stuff to the choice of let's do this urban thing, and what it tackles, I think is fascinating. And I remember specifically thinking, whoa, I didn't expect that. You expected maybe to go back to the jungle or maybe kind of adjacent, but I think bringing it to America also is interesting to me. I like it. But absolutely, it's violent. It's insensitive in ways that we maybe don't do now. But I think it's fascinating. I think there's a lot of great character bits. I think there's a lot of interesting set pieces. I think it's also a time capsule of where action is and just what they were trying to portray and what they thought. Because there's some clunky bits. Clunky one-liners, clunky kind of this is the thing that is important to us now. We're gonna do this, the get stuff and the Robert Downey. I mean the Downey Jr. stuff, like
Morton.
Yeah. Morton Downey Jr. Sorry, I don't know why I was thinking that. Anyway,
well,
Morton
because
Downey
it's
Jr.
complicated because we've got RDJ now. So yeah.
Morton Downey Jr. just doing his shtick.
Yes.
Supposedly,
you're like, why is he there? What is going on?
But he's our. I'll buy that for $1.
Yeah.
Because that's where journalism will go in 97 of this world, right?
Yeah.
And I think anybody who was around at that time was like, yeah, I mean, I can see that because his show's already that, right? Just not on the streets. And because he was such that when he gets punched in the movie, that's your time to go, yeah,
you're right.
Exploitative news jerk, or not even just rabble rouser. It's not even news at that point, right?
Yeah.
So there is that moment where you get the catharsis of somebody should do that at some point because he's such a terrible person. But I guess Geraldo had gotten punched. I wonder, was that before or after this? I wonder, right?
Geraldo getting smashed in the nose with a chair was before this. Yeah, that was in the 80s. That was like, I can't remember what actual date, but it was definitely prior to 1990.
So I don't know if that also fueled this or if it's just the catharsis of somebody should punch that reporter because he's completely being a jerk and exploiting all this horrible
November 1988. So it was right before this. Yeah, and
what strikes could have been into that. I don't know.
No, I think so. Actually, I'll share about that in my final thought because I don't want to.
No, but that's kind of it for me. I enjoy it, but I also agree your mileage certainly may vary on this. I like the setting. I think it's got a lot of great bits.
So when I think about the stuff, your point about Geraldo is well taken, because when I think about what this movie is reflecting in the culture, then it becomes interesting, because I go, yeah, because there's this feeling of everything being out of control. TV hosts, Bob Parr's gone and Geraldo Rivera's getting punched in the nose, and Morton Downey Jr. is doing his crazy shtick, and Bernie Getz goes to jail, and I don't know if I can protect myself, and maybe someday it'll be just aliens versus gangs, and maybe that's fine. The world is spinning out of control, and
Right.
that's what this is reflecting. That makes sense. That's the only way that I would find this movie something that I would want to watch, right? But from that perspective, that's interesting. I'm not particularly into the Predator. It doesn't do anything for me for whatever reason. This one just bonks off the glass shell that is around my head, so it doesn't connect. Maybe someday it will, but this was pretty fun. It wasn't. I've really enjoyed the conversation, probably more than I enjoyed the movie. And that is often the case. And I have made y'all watch some stuff that is very difficult to defend, because I'm the one who said we need to do the initiation of Sarah. So I'm fine.
That's part of it, though. I think that's interesting. But regardless, for what it's worth, the Predator design, and so much, good thing that they didn't go with the original Predator stuff the way it was supposed to be before they kind of.
I'm not completely certain on the Van Damme lobster suit. What the hell was that supposed to be?
They thought a lot of it would be invisible anyway, and it's a whole thing. I mean, there's a bunch of pretty good documentaries on it, or of various, some of them professional, some just YouTube things about it. But the suits, the look of the Predator, and the mythology there's something to it, right? That's gone. You say, hey, it doesn't really work for me, but like how he looks, and how how the mandibles operate, and all that look and feel, and his kind of all the parts and all his weaponry, and the fishnet kind of thing that goes back to the kind of fishnet stuff that we see ninjas had supposedly, and all of that stuff. There's something about that stuck with people, and that's hard to do. Like making a movie monster, you think of all the movie monsters that are out there. Some of them work and some of them don't. It's like mascots. Like some mascots work, some don't. So there's something that hit, and we're still. I mean, we just covered a Predator movie.
Yeah,
like, this isn't something where it faded away and people are like, oh yeah, I don't.
Right.
If there was a Mount Rushmore for famous monsters of filmland, the Predator surely has earned its place in modern history. It is 100% iconic.
Definitely goes in the top 10. I don't know if it would fit on Rushmore, but I mean, would it?
I was just trying to be poetic.
Sure. But I think that in itself is interesting. And this also, we don't see a Predator movie for a little while after this, but certainly this informed the comics and other media that kept going, to the point where you even have like Archie versus Predator, like
fair.
How crazy is that? It's kind of cool.
And I'm looking at the suit right now. Somebody posted a TikTok video on Twitter of the suit from the most recent movie, which is actually a better look at the creature than any of that I feel like in the actual film. And it's crazy to see the variations that they've done on it, but also what is a callback, like what we think is essential, like what they have to keep. And
certainly the fishnets is like this very important piece of it, and fascinating. Well, that's actually cool. You should post the TikTok. I guess you could post the link.
I already shared it.
All right, excellent. We should do our endorsements. I'm dying to know what you guys have been up to, and Joy and I have the coolest endorsement that we've had in weeks that I'm super excited about. So Julia, you can do it, and then I can skip it unless you had something else.
No, I have other things. You can do
it. Well, Monsieur Drew, why don't you get started? What do you got for us?
So as I mentioned last week, Tony sent me an anime, which is a dinosaur anime, because long-term listeners of this podcast know that I am nuts about dinosaurs. So it's called Heart and Yummy. and it's it's the story of a Tyrannosaurus that is adopted by a Hadrosaurus, and then which is a herbivorous dinosaur, and then raised until it gets to a certain age, and then it goes off of its own. Then the Tyrannosaurus named Hart adopts an Ankylosaur, which is another herbivorous dinosaur, and then raises it as its own. So it's really this story about mixed families, but it's dinosaurs, and because it's anime, of course they all do martial arts, and it was adorable. It's got a really interesting animation style, like the characterization or the character designs are extremely minimalist, but it 100% works. So thank you, Tony. That was a lot of fun to watch. There's actually 2 other movies on there. Apparently this is a trilogy, so I need to watch the other 2, but I really enjoyed the first one, so that's 100% my first endorsement. Blu-ray that was put out was limited, so I think you might have to hunt this down on streaming to watch it. But
I think it's 2,000 of them, so depends. Discotheque is just amazing though.
It looked great.
They do a great job.
Yeah. But another thing that that Jamie and I have been watching together that's not necessarily monster or horror or anything genre related is we've been watching the new League of Their Own TV show on Amazon.
Oh, cool.
And it's been interesting seeing, like, the show is definitely a less romanticized version of the 1940s. So like you have characters dealing with like racial inequality and it's homophobia, things like that. So it's a much more grounded version of this story than I think the film was. And I don't mean that as a knock, because I think the film, as far as baseball movies go, I think the film is quite fun and holds up really well. But it's been interesting to see a more nuanced version of that. And I think also if you just like retro aesthetics, you'll probably get something out of it. I also feel like I need to say this one last time. 3 more days left on my Indiegogo campaign for Halloween Man Meets the Latex Avenger. I have lots of cool perks. You can buy Halloween Man back issues. You can buy Latex Avenger back issues. You can get sketches. You can get cameos and comics. We are trying to reach $2,000. We are at 1,700. We are like a spitting distance away. If we can just make, for the next 3 days, solidly keep bringing in money, we'll get close to that. So if you have backed, thank you. Please spread the word. If you haven't backed yet, please, go to the Indiegogo. The link is all over my social media. I'll post it on the Castle of Horror Facebook tomorrow too. But please consider being a backer, because we're winding things down, but we're still trying to hit that stretch goal.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Julia, what do you have?
So I actually want to talk about 2 binge-worthy series that I've took in this week. So last week was like movies week. We went to the movies, but this week I just binge watched stuff. And so one is the Netflix show Uncoupled with Neil Patrick Harris. If anybody's into kind of rom-com types, it's such a great show. I just knocked the whole thing out like all in a row. I think maybe, I don't even know if it took me 2 days. It might have been 2 days, but it was barely 2 days. It was just so funny and endearing. And if you like attractive men, you will enjoy this a lot, because there's a lot of attractive men in it. So it's a very, very, very fun show. I like a lot. And then the other one is The Resort, which is a Peacock show that is streaming. It's not, it hasn't dropped all the episodes. There's 3 more episodes. And so Jason and I binge watched that in a couple of days. And it's really interesting, kind of suspenseful. It's funny in a lot of ways, but it's very suspenseful. It gets more suspenseful as it goes on. And it's basically about this couple that happens upon a mystery of like some people that disappeared at a resort 15 years prior, and they're kind of trying to solve the mystery, and it's really interesting. So I'm just super enjoying that. I can't wait for the last 3 episodes to come out.
Very good. Thank you. And yeah, I'm loving The Resort as well. I was pleasantly surprised. It looked like a pleasant diversion. It actually is really gripping. Tony, what about you?
Well, first off, I've been watching Beavis and Butthead, like the new movies and the new series, and it's really funny. And then I also started watching the older episodes that were on Paramount Plus, and boy, oh boy, it's nice nostalgia. It is exactly what it is, but it was kind of cool to go back to that. Also been watching Loot, which is, if you haven't watched that, Julia, I think you'd really dig it. That's super great.
Okay.
It's Maya Rudolph, and yeah, we've been really enjoying that. But the thing I posted to Jason the other night was I was up late. I keep vampire hours, just insomnia, etc. And so I turned on Shout Factory TV on my Roku and started watching The Soldier from 1982, and it is something else. It is a Cold War thriller it goes hard from the beginning.
Man,
and it is definitely of a time. And if you're looking for Cold War, lots of shooting and just everything of its, just all the politics, everything. Ken Wall, just, man, it is something. Like I think I had seen it before. I'm pretty sure, because I remember
Probably
bits
saw it on
of it,
HBO
but I
back in the
hadn't
day.
seen it
Yeah.
in a long time. And I start watching it and just go, whoa, where this just starts and it keeps going. And yeah, it's on Shout Factory TV. I was surprised I couldn't really find it on any other streaming without any commercials. I couldn't really find it. I think Shout Factory TV is the only place.
I think Tubi has it as well, for what it's
Does
worth.
it? I looked. I thought anyway, but that's neither here nor there. You can watch it definitely on Shout Factory TV. If it's on Tubi,
they're getting it from Shout Factory, is what they're doing.
But they tend to have less ads though.
Mm.
For something about Shout, I don't know if it's just where I am at or whatever, but whenever I get ads on Shout Factory, and I love the service, don't get me wrong, but for some reason I get a kabillion ads on their app. And that's how they have to get paid, and it goes to Shout Factory. So by no means am I really disparaging that, but sometimes when you're looking at, am I going to watch 17 ads?
Yes.
You start to wonder, like, and I'm doing this every 5 to 10 minutes. It starts to get like, how much am I actually watching the movie? It didn't do it this time on that, so I didn't want to digress too much. But
well, seriously though, it is on Tubi,
for,
so you'll find it there. Maybe it'll have less ads. You can try it.
I don't know. We'll see. But either way, if you're looking for Cold War thrillers that start with just, here's what we're giving you, I was surprised, and I was kind of like, yeah, I don't know how I hadn't seen this in a long time. But also Ken Wall kind of reminds me of Brendan Roth.
Yeah, no, I can see that.
When I was like, his face looks so familiar. Who does he look like? And then the next day I was like, oh yeah. But yeah. And then I haven't been able to watch it yet, but I got The Seventh Curse, which was one of our side episodes from the UK, and haven't had a chance to watch it, but boy, is it the Seventh Curse box set, if you have a region free player and you can find it where people aren't gouging the prices because it went out of print. Boy, is it jam packed full of category 3 gory awesomeness.
It's wonderful. Yeah,
something else.
It's really great.
But they really knocked it out of the park with the set that they made. So that's if we piqued your interest in the side episode we did of it, there's now a really good version of that out there.
Yeah, I really enjoyed doing a lot of the what we call the lean back episodes, where it was less organized than this. But where we just talk about random movies that weren't part of any.
If you can believe it.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, I mean, the difficulty is just purely time, and I suppose slightly, but mainly time budgetary. It's like, how the hell do we find time to record an extra show every week? But boy, they were fun. Like those were really cool. Yeah. Thank you, Tony. I wanted to recommend something that is a part of the Denver experience, which we've been here for a number of years, but we've never been out to Lakeside Amusement Park. And Julia and I and our 17-year-old went to Lakeside. Lakeside is an amusement park that was built in 1908. The burnt out wreckage of a dilapidated Ferris wheel still stands next to the water, next to a chained off landing where boats used to come and go. you know,
But there's also stuff that's actually running.
a lot of it's
Like
running.
that's
We
yeah,
did
a lot of
the
really
bumper
great stuff.
boats. We
There's
did
a
the
neat train that
carousel.
goes around a lake. It's
Oh
so beautiful.
yeah. So
No,
it
I'm
was
just looking. I'm actually right now looking at pictures from when like from the 1920s or whatever. It's in history
yes. So it's so
history.denverlibrary.org.
strange. Whatever you're picturing when you're thinking running around a over 100-year-old amusement park where many rides are running and many rides appear not to have moved in 50 years, that is exactly what it looks like. And
I
it's
kept expecting to walk through a portal into the
yeah.
past, and it never happened. I was really hoping.
Some of it, I rode a roller coaster though, a thing called the Wild Chipmunk that I have to say made me feel like I was in like Final
About to
Destination.
die.
I really just thought, nope, I am too big a dude. This is going to this is going to flip me right off this thing. That was not wise.
Be careful what you wish for about the time portal, though, Julia. What if you're in 97 of the future of the Predator?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, that's what I kept saying.
97
Actually,
from the,
I was walking around that place, and I was like, "This would be a great place to film a horror movie," because it's like there's so many things that would be really good horror movies.
It reminded me so much of the place in the Funhouse, the Tobe Hooper movie. Actually, you know, right down to, they don't have it anymore, but they used to have a Funhouse at this place that literally had one of the animated fat lady mannequins, you know, that would wave and beckon you into the Funhouse. Not a
The
thing that
Laughing
exists
Sal's.
anymore. Laughing Sal, she was called. Yes. So, oh my God, Lakeside Amusement Park. I should have gone years ago. What an experience! And don't stay after it closes. I suspect is the best advice I could give you.
It's
But yeah,
probably haunted, but we didn't experience any
right.
ghosts.
Oh, very cool. I'm gonna have nightmares. All right, and that's it. That was our discussion of Predator 2. We're so thankful that you would spend time with us. Please come to the Facebook page or to Twitter and tell us what you think. And everyone, Tony, Drew, Julia, I'm so thankful that you would be here. It was good talking to you. Have a wonderful week. Hopefully, we'll be back next week. I believe. I don't think it's a week off. So we'll talk and figure out what the heck we're doing because we don't know yet. So
we'll continue with aliens, but it'll be Mac and me.
Oh my God!
Not really. Not really, but
no, we're literally going to get on a
diversion.
Yeah, we'll get on chat and we'll decide live in the room, and we have all these lists, and we'll ignore all of them, and we'll just suddenly it'll be like, without warning, starring Jack Palance. Like, why? How did we choose that? I don't know.
Okay.
Probably won't be without warning, although that's possible. I don't know. It was the first thing that popped into my head. Have a fantastic evening, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Night.